Hey guys, welcome back to more revenge stories. In this video, a neighbor repeatedly stole OP's parking spot and OP then decided to befriend the local crows. Let's dive right into this brand new story. And the first one is titled, "My neighbor takes up all the parking spaces on the street, so I made friends with the crows." Posted by user Too Many Julies. This is simple petty revenge. I have a neighbor who takes up all the free parking on our street and in front of my home with his trucks, 8 or 10 of them, and also has done lots of things to personally annoy me. Things like driving his dirt bikes through my front yard and letting his dog crap there right in front of me. So here's what I did. I befriended the local family of crows by feeding them their favorite things. Now, I will occasionally see 5 or 6 crows waiting patiently in the tree in front of my house, crapping and looking especially creepy, but surprisingly not making a whole lot of noise to give away our secret to the other nicer neighbors. They have also not crapped on my car in my driveway once, not once, in all the past months I've been treating them. The trees mostly cover the street area anyway. Edit, if you know crows, they are legion, and if my neighbor decides to retaliate, there will surely be a full-on war. And yeah guys, if you know, you know. You never mess with the murder of crows. By the way guys, shout out to longtime viewer Captain Dropbear, this story was especially read for you. And the next one is a fantastic HOA revenge story. And if you enjoy revenge stories, please don't forget to like the video to help me fight back against the AI rebellion. Someone has to stop Skynet, that's for sure. So I thought I would share this here. Even though I don't actually live in an HOA, I had a brush with one a few years ago. I've got a pretty big property, it's right off of the local highway and had been a small farm at one point. The previous owner could not maintain it, so they sold most of the land off, still leaving a decent amount that makes up my yard. It is great for entertaining, especially on the 4th of July, since I can have smaller fireworks going off without worrying about being too close to my neighbors. To be clear, this did not happen in the US. I'd been thinking about putting up a fence at a few points, but the cost was not worth it, so when I first got the house, and I eventually just let that plan fall to the wayside. About 4 years ago, a bunch of land was bought up to create a housing development. The group that owned it worked quickly, and I think it took them less than 2 years to have it open and ready for purchases. There was an HOA that owned the properties, something I found out while checking out the development's website. One day, I was cleaning one of the rooms upstairs in my home when I noticed people outside my window. They were about 20 feet from my house carrying clipboards and writing things down. I assumed it was a group of solicitors, so I went outside and asked them very politely why they were in my yard. One of the women in the group looked a bit taken aback, insisting that this was land that the HOA owned and I could not just call it my yard. Me, I assure you, this is my yard. I've been on this property for about 6 years now, and where you're standing, that's part of my property. Woman number 1, "There must be some kind of misunderstanding. We were told that the local HOA was looking to build a park here and that it already purchased the land." Me, "Do you work for the HOA? Woman number 2, "We were hired on as planners for the park, but we are not affiliated with them." Me, "Okay, I would say check with your boss for proof of this purchase, but I've never sold any part of my land to anyone. There was land that the former owner divvied out, but nothing this close to the actual house." Woman number 1, "Alright, I will reach out to my manager and they will be in touch with the HOA about this." The group left and I thought that was the end of it. Then I got a letter. Most of the letter was just flowery language to hide what they really wanted to say, but to sum it up, the HOA was claiming that they had purchased my yard, and because I sent away the planners, I was actually trespassing on their property and would call the police if I did it again. But well, it is my yard and there wasn't any property that they owned that could be mistaken for my yard. I just crumpled up the request and decided to have a little get-together that weekend with a bunch of my family members. I insisted that anyone who had kids bring over water balloons and slip-and-slides just because I would show the HOA just how much I was enjoying the yard I owned. The weekend comes and literally an hour into the fun, a police officer shows up. I asked what the issue was, and the officer was actually really nice about the situation. Apparently, someone from the HOA called him about trespassers and disruptive noises, but he said that just driving from the HOA's office to my yard, you could not hear anything. That, and he was familiar with the property. His uncle was the one who owned the farmland, so he knew that my yard was in fact my yard. I thanked him for being so kind, and then he left. Apparently, the HOA did not like that the police took my side, and they tried to report me 3 more times in less than a month, and I was getting irritated. So I decided to do something about it. I called up one of the companies that I'd been looking at for fencing and wanted to get a quote for the tallest fence they would be able to build on my property. I got the quote and a design and decided to go through with it. It took a few weeks, but my entire yard was surrounded by a 10-foot fence. The HOA did try to actually sue, claiming that the area that my fence was on was owned by the HOA and had been purchased as a park, and that my fence now devalues all the properties in the HOA neighborhood. But I had figured that they would try something like this. When I was getting the fence done, the company did have to reach out to the county for property paperwork, just so they did not build over something underground or ended up in the county's property. I had asked for a copy of all the documentation that showed where my property line ended and was able to present that to the lawyer I hired. The fence was exactly where it should be. Their claim that they had already purchased the land was questioned, and they were working with someone that would try and get me to sell it. I told them that my yard was not for sale, and they either stopped the case or I would countersue. They did drop it, but I always think of what could have happened if I went after them. For now, I get to enjoy my backyard and try to have as many get-togethers as possible, if only to be a little petty. And yeah guys, the next one will be a story from r/traumatized them back, which is actually a subreddit that many of you recommended to me in the comments, and I must say, this subreddit is truly growing on me. This one is titled "Substitute Teacher Asks Student to Turn Off Her Insulin Pump." So this happened in high school. We were a pretty chill group of students, and while there were definite friend groups, we all got along well. A girl in our year had an insulin pump for type 1 diabetes. Teachers and students alike knew, but this substitute teacher was definitely in the dark. She was an old, crotchety woman and far too strict compared to most subs. The pump beeps for the first time, and the teacher's head jolts up. Whose phone was that? We all ignore her and go back to our business, but sometime later, the pump beeps again. Teacher's already on high alert and zeroes in on the student. I heard that. Turn it off now, or I will take it. The student tries to explain it's her insulin pump, but no excuses, give me your phone now. Everyone in class is paying attention, and a few speak up. It's really her pump, miss. She has diabetes, what the hell? But now, teacher has a choice here. Accept that she's wrong, apologize and move on, but no, she doubles down. Well, turn it off then, or mute it. No electronics in class. The entire class goes wild. Echoes of WTF echo through the room. The poor girl is going beet red and desperately trying to explain why she cannot turn off her pump when class clown comes to the rescue. He says, she will literally die. What the heck is wrong with you? Teacher goes silent, looking mortified. Class ended and we never saw her again. And yeah guys, I gotta say, these traumatized them back stories are really growing on me. Let me know in the comments what you think about them. The next one is another story from the same subreddit, and it is titled "Somebody at work did not respect my out of office, so I let them know what I was doing." So I work in tech as a project/program manager. It can be pretty fast paced, and we deal with really big dollar multinational projects all of the time, so I'm frequently called on at wild hours of the day. 2 years ago, while in her late 30s, my wife learned in pretty much the most horrifying way possible that she has a rare and serious lymphoma. Treatment required surgery, several rounds of inpatient chemo, and an allogeneic bone marrow stem cell transplant. As a result, I found myself the sole breadwinner for the family, her primary caretaker, and the primary parent for our 3 young kids. Almost everybody I work with have been incredibly supportive throughout this process. My boss and immediate leadership basically granted me as much paid time away from work as I needed, as they know I work my butt off all the time. I continued to work throughout her treatment, but I would often take 2 to 3 hours off during days when she has appointments or infusion. I would just put an out of office on my email and messaging apps and be there for my wife. One salesman did not care. I guess his commission check was too big for him to let something like an alert that I am out of the office keep him from blowing up my messages about how he needs something urgently. And yes, I should have ignored the messages, but I responded that I'm out of office and would call him back later when I was available. He could not take no for an answer though, so I answered his Teams call with my camera on from the infusion room at the oncologist office. This was where my wife was sitting, bald and curled up in a ball with a combo of chemo sick and exhaustion from the BMT. He asked where I was, I told him, and suddenly the call was not so urgent. "Oh man, can you just call me back later?" My wife is doing great, by the way. She said I should post this here because she thought it was so funny. And the next one is titled, Nurses Only, Alright. Sitting in my wife's hospital room and a nurse asked if there was anything she could get me. I had a bit of a tickle in my throat and I was thirsty, so I asked for something carbonated. She brought me ginger ale. Great, problem solved. Next shift, nurse asked the same question and I asked for a ginger ale. She bought me a ginger ale with no problem. Next shift, no problem. Then things get interesting. Morning shift comes in. This nurse asks the same question. I asked for a ginger ale. She told me those are for patients only. I had to go get my own. So I Instacarted a ginger ale along with a few other things with instructions to deliver to the room. They were taking my wife away to surgery and the Instacart shows up at the same time. He asks if anyone ordered groceries. I waved my hand up and asked him to leave it in the room. The nurse exclaimed, "You cannot do that." I told her, "You told me I had to get my own." So I did. The sheer look of her head blowing a gasket was priceless. I really do love nurses. They are more important than the doctors in my opinion. Patients have the most contact with them. I even keep treats in the room just for nurses. I've never met a nurse as militant or controlling or as much of a sheer BTH as this one. So I took a bit of pleasure here. What she didn't know is that I was a patient in this hospital for 3.5 weeks back in January. I Instacarted and DoorDashed orders with no problem. I could only eat so much hospital food. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I own a very large plot of farmland in an area that had been rural for a very long time. For some reason lately, a bunch of people have been moving into the area and trying to make it more suburban. It is not really working, and what we have is a weird hybrid of people who think they are important and have money living in a rural area and trying to pretend like they aren't. I have no idea if I missed like a trend or some planet going crazy, because this happened all within a couple of years out of the blue. Now, most of these people don't need a story about them because they are just generically crappy people. Karen, on the other hand, crossed the line of being entitled, so she gets her very own story to be online forever. Backing up a little bit, Karen moved into a smaller plot of land with her huge family. Don't ask me how many people actually live on the property, because it seems like people come and go all the time. I cannot keep track of how many people legally live on that land, but for sure, Karen lives on the land with her husband and at least 8 kids. Kids being used as stretch because a couple of them are old enough to be married and have their own kids who also might live on the property. Again, very hard to tell. Finally, I find other people that I believe are aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. that always seem to be around as well. There's nothing wrong with a big family at all. In fact, in rural areas like this, having a lot of kids can mean more farmhands to help with chores. The issue was that they didn't have nearly enough space for the number of people trying to fit on this property. And because of this, Karen told any of her family members that come to just park their car on my property so theirs would be less crowded and cluttered. I was not asked if this could happen, and you can be sure that I was not happy about it either. Cars driving all over my land can ruin it for one, and for another, it's my private property. When it is 1 or 2, I might just get a little bit annoyed and want to go tell the people not to park there. When Karen throws a party though, it can mean up to 12 cars randomly parked all over my property with their drivers too drunk to do anything. After one party I went to go and have a talk with Karen. Me, "Excuse me ma'am, I was hoping I could have a word with you about the cars being parked on my grass." Karen, "Ew, you smell like manure and sweat. Don't you think a shower is called for before talking to somebody above you?" Me, "Above me? That's a little presumptuous." Karen, "Wow, you even know a big word. I'm so impressed." Sarcastic, obviously. "What is wrong with my car anyway?" Me, "You keep having people park on my property. I want it to stop or I'll have to start getting the police and towing company involved." Karen, "That area is fine for them to park in. I'm the owner and say it's fine." Me, "You only own to the fence. On the other side the land is mine." Karen, don't pretend like you actually own land. You are probably just working for $1 an hour and sending the money back to your family. Now might be a good time to point out that I'm Hispanic and now racism is checked off the Karen bingo card. I warn her again that I do own the land, and this is her one and only warning to stay off of my land with the cars. You can imagine that since she does not even believe that I own the land, she does not listen to a single word I say. A week later she has another party and I waste no time calling a towing company explaining that there are a dozen illegally parked cars on my property. I figured after 1 or 2 people getting towed, people would start running out in a panic. However, it was not until the 9th car being towed away that Karen got alerted to what was going on and started yelling and cursing at me. I told her that I warned her what would happen and she only had herself to blame. Her family could also only blame her because she let them park illegally knowing that they could get towed away. All 12 cars did get taken since nobody was sober enough to move them. Karen was pissed at me and the next day screamed that she was gonna sue me and take every last acre of my land. The war was now on and she did not know who she was getting into the ring with. Her lawsuit was horrible and revolved less around the actual facts and more about me not owning the land and being in the country illegally. Proving I was born here? Easy. Proving the land was mine? Even easier. When it came to the actual point of the cars, no lawyer was gonna help her take me to court because it was a losing battle. She could not sue me for no reason, but I did not let things just nicely stop there. Karen had started a war and I was not gonna let her relax for one moment after what she pulled. I enjoyed my breakfast with a piping hot side of revenge, and that was exactly what was coming for Karen. I had a feeling the parking issue was not gonna stop, so I decided to set a trap on my property. Spikes that hit in the grass and at night would be impossible to see or notice until all your tires got blown out. Also perfectly legal since my land, and my reasoning was if a car came fast into my land it could harm my animals. 4 cars got popped tires and Karen called the cops on me for damaging her family's cars. I stood there and made the police ask them why they parked on a yard that had no trespassing and even danger do not enter signs. Karen again claimed it was her land and I was just a worker, despite me having court records to show the police. I was asked if I wanted the cars removed from my property and I told the officers that I did. Karen was furious and I think family realized that she was not gonna beat me if she kept this going on. Cars stopped being parked on my land and I made sure to keep the spikes up just in case. I think at one point she tried to remove them or have one of her kids remove them. This is because I heard a yelp of pain over there and nothing else could have hurt them. I guess they thought I would be dumb enough to not place them properly or something. I do have to be careful over there now, but it was more than worth it to get my revenge on Karen. I may have also made an anonymous tip to the police about strange-looking people coming and going all hours of the night. That got her entire property searched, which was also very entertaining for me. And before we end today's video, we will read one last story from r/pettyrevenge. This one is titled, "Wanna pass me? Fine, I will let you pass." So I live in Germany and was driving on the Autobahn in a section that had no speed limit but was only 2 lanes. A semi-truck was passing another semi-truck on an uphill, so it was taking a while. I drove patiently behind the semi-truck in the left lane, waiting for him to finish passing so I could speed up again. But suddenly, some dude in an Audi flies up behind me, getting so close I cannot even see his headlights, and well, he rides my ass for a few seconds until I happen to clean my rear windshield, spraying his car with windshield wiper fluid. This prompts him to back off to a safer following distance, but he is flashing his bright lights and was his left turn signal on, both universal signs that someone is in the left lane who shouldn't be. Now, sometimes someone will do this not realizing you're stuck behind someone else, but I was behind a semi-truck and he could clearly see that I was stuck behind this truck. Well, what did he want me to do? Go through the truck? But hey, I will do as he asks. I drop back and get in the right lane, letting him take my spot behind the semi. I then promptly get behind him, turn on my turn signal, and start flashing my brights non-stop. I can see him getting angrier and angrier, but there's nothing he can do, and finally the truck finishes passing and gets back in the right lane and the Audi absolutely takes off. Well, unfortunately for him, we had entered a 120 km/h zone and I saw the telltale flash of a speed camera. He then slowed down and then ended up exiting at the next rest stop, presumably to cool down. I would like to think he learned his lesson and won't drive like that in the future, but I doubt it. And yeah guys, please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you again tomorrow.